Hey everyone, today we are discussing chapter 4 of the Daily 5, and this one is all about read to self, which is the first that the sisters suggest launching of the Daily 5 routines, procedures, practices. So, getting started with the first reflection question slash thing to think about. Number 1, how far into the school year do you think kinders need to be in order to be able to begin the process of read to self? What's realistic? When do you plan to begin implementation? So this year, I'm planning on doing it the first full week of school. So we start school on a Wednesday and have an early dismissal. Thursday, our dismissal is an hour later than Wednesday. On Friday, it's an hour later than that. And then on Monday, we always have a dismissal at 12:55 p.m., which is normal days are 3 p.m., so almost 2 hours or a little more than 2 hours early. So I'm thinking on that Monday, it will just be our regular schedule. That's when all of our special classes start, like music and PE. And so I'm going to launch Read to Self just like it's one of, another routine that my students need to learn, because that's exactly what it's going to be for the entire school year. Number 2, how will you make sure that each child views him or herself as a reader, whether they are reading words or not? So I really think that emphasizing that we all read in 3 ways is going to be very important in establishing this. Students coming into kindergarten don't often read the words in books, but they're excellent at reading pictures and retelling familiar stories. So by definitely going over this every day and then modeling it for them, what it looks like to read pictures in a book and then what it looks like to retell a story that they've already heard, just to kind of prove to them or reassure to them that what they're doing when they're holding books is actually reading. And that will ensure that they really buy into the idea that they are readers, even if they're not reading the words that are on the page. I also think by using books that are phonetically regular or that are based upon a specific sight word, students have a better chance of becoming engaged with them because they're recognizing words or blending words that are approachable and not too intimidating or challenging to them. And also it's going to be really important to have the books that I have shared with them available for them to put into their book boxes. So for example, if I read a Goldilocks and the Three Bears story, that's a story that they could then retell. So making sure that I have several copies of a book like that so that they can put it in their book boxes and have the opportunity to retell that during their read to self time. Number 3, what are some ideas you have about launching Read to Self in kindergarten? How will you go about it, and what are some ways to make sure it is kinder-friendly? So again, this is all about doing a really big buy-in, that they are in kindergarten now and they are readers, and I am so excited that we are going to be reading 3 different ways all year long, and then teaching them about the 3 ways of learning to read. I think it's also going to be really important to teach them strategies for reading the words. So starting right away by saying, when you're reading words, you can be looking for letters that you know, and starting off really simply like that, looking for letters and words. And then moving on to sight words that they know and blending sounds together so that they can begin to sound out decodable books. Number 4, how do you build the children's belief that this is important? What can we do to encourage the ones who do not value it and create disruptions for others? So I think this goes back to something that we discussed more at the beginning of the book in chapter 1 or chapter 2, and that's really the trust and the ownership that students have to have. So I have to trust them that they're going to stay on task, that they can become great readers, and they're going to trust me that I won't have them do anything that they're not ready for. And then they can take ownership of their learning if I'm willing to explain, why is this so important? Why is it crucial that we learn how to read? And so I think spending time doing a lesson on why reading is really important and why it's really important that we do read to self every day, that's going to improve their buy-in and also really make it or emphasize it so that they recognize just how important it is that they learn how to read. And also the kindergartners can be reading with their 4th grade buddies. And I think this will be a really great way too for them to see a big kid or an older kid who loves books or who can read their favorite story to them. And so again, the kindergartners will have a role model, not just a grown-up, but another child that sees reading as valuable and can tell them how important it is as they continue to grow and get older and move up the grades in school. Number 5, How valuable is checking in and reviewing with kindergartners? How often will you do it? When will you do it? What are some different ways to check in? I think the checking in process is so very important. And so, what I have done in the past is I check in every time that we need to take a break from our reading. So, if we are just beginning Read to Self and the students have read only for a minute, then I'm going to call all the students back to our meeting space, whether that's the carpet or in front of the smartboard, and we're going to review all of the things that we know how to do independently during Read to Self. And so we go through each one on our eye chart. And then something else that I do that I forget if it was in the book or on the sisters' website, and that is just to check in individually, and they do a thumbs up or a thumbs to the side check-in. So I have them put their hand on their heart or their fist over their heart, and when I say one of the things on the eye chart, if they felt like they did an awesome job of it, they're going to give themselves a thumbs up. Or if it was something that, they did, or maybe they started to do but needed more practice with, they're just going to leave their thumb to the side because they're still practicing. We don't do a thumbs down because we are always improving. We can always practice and we can always get better. So we're not going to say, oh, I was bad at that. We're going to say, I just need more practice with it. So keeping it really positive by putting either the thumbs up or just the thumbs to the side if it's something that we need to keep working on. I also like that because it's kind of a private thing, and so I tell them, we're not putting it out in front of us. It's not for everybody else to see our thumb. It's really just for us to know personally, and then I can kind of see it too. It's really between me and the student. It's not between the students, the peers together. Number 6, what are some problems that can occur during Read to Self, either that you anticipate with your kinders or that you have experienced? How can we be proactive about these issues? So really, my biggest issue that I've encountered during Read to Self has just been when students get distracted and kind of look around the room. I haven't had major problems with students getting up, wandering around. I haven't had issues with students bothering others. It really is just that they're not totally on task. And of course, this is a problem because if they're not reading to themselves, they're not becoming better readers. So I really think that one of the best things that we can do is having them model both the correct model, the incorrect model, and then again going back and showing the correct model. And we can target those students that we're noticing are having particular trouble with a given skill. So for example, during Read to Self, if I have a student that maybe kept getting up to go to the tissue box, I could have that student come and show me, well, what's the incorrect way during Read to Self for stay in one spot? And so maybe that child will go show me how they can get a tissue from the tissue box, and they come sit back down, they pick up a book, they go get another tissue, maybe then they go get a drink of water and come sit back down. And we'll say, oh wow, that was great, you showed us how not to do it. Now show us the correct way. And having that child demonstrate in front of the entire class that yes, indeed, they do know how to sit and read the entire time shows that they can do it. And then it's also a reference point for, let's say, the next time we're doing Read to Self, they start to get up and get tissues again. I can go and say, remember when you modeled the correct way to stay in one spot during Read to Self? And they'll say, yeah, I do. Say, I know that you can do it right now. So let's get started doing our Read to Self. And I have found that that really works. If it's still an issue where they're having a hard time staying focused, maybe it's just the given day, then sometimes I'll move them just with closer proximity to me and say, oh, I think this might be a better learning spot for you. I think we want to make sure that you can be reading the whole time. And that can also really help as well. So those are my thoughts on Read to Self in Chapter 4 of the Daily 5. I absolutely love using Read to Self, and I'm really excited to start it from the very beginning of the school year this year for the first time ever. So I will most certainly be letting everyone know how it goes once we get started in the fall, but I look forward to reading on and thinking about how I'm going to be implementing work on writing and reading to someone and the other components of the Daily 5. Hope everybody is having an awesome day, and I will see y'all soon. Bye.